All right, Clint from the doorway too. Hanging out with Ronny from VaelMyst. Really do appreciate you doing this, man. Your record has recently kicked my ass pretty hard, so it's a very cool thing to be able to talk to people about their music. So I guess the first thing I'm gonna ask is why the name VaelMyst spelled the way it is. That's gonna be my first question.
That's a good question. I like that. Uh, so kind of the origin of how we came across that name was me and John, my vocalist. We originally had a project that was called Antikythera, and it's on Spotify and everything. It's Melodeath, but it's much more in the vein of kind of like kind of more epic Melodeath, like Insomnium, Soilwork, kind of, and we started writing the Earthly Wounds EP, and it was such a different vibe that, like, along with that, and along to the fact that there was already like 4 or 5 bands that were using the Antikythera name, that we were kind of like, yo, like, if we're gonna do this, let's put it under something new and like, really take the time and effort to like get a name that's like kind of unique and cool. And one day I was listening to a lot of Winterfella, and I was like, man, old English words are kind of cool. I should look into that a little bit. So I went on some like old English dictionary website, and I was just typing in stupid shit like horror and death and whatever, just trying to find whatever. And I eventually came across I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce the actual word. I'm not sure if it's VaelMyst or if it's VaelMyst.
Yeah.
It's spelled with the W. And I came across that word, and I was like, man, that's kind of cool. That's sick. Like, and if that's pronounced VaelMyst, that sounds really sick, and that's kind of unique and cool. And John was just like, well, let's just change the W to a V so no one gets confused with that. And we were like, that makes sense. And then as for the Y's are just cooler than I's. So
no, I totally get it. That's very cool. Thanks, man. So I'm going to talk about the EP and the new record because that's the two things I've listened to most.
Sure.
By the way, so kick-ass nod to the Artillery t-shirt because old school thrash metal is fucking the best, man. That's all
By Inheritance is probably like I think it's one of the most like underrated thrash metal albums made. It's so good.
Oh God, just that period of thrash is just like my favorite. So that's so awesome, man. Cool. So talking about thrash metal, I want to talk about Earthly Wounds because there is a very different vibe to me on Earthly Wounds than there is on Secrets. And I'm going to say there's a much more thrashy kind of 80s heavy metal vibe on Earthly Wounds. And I also noticed, so talk to me a little bit about this too. It's just the two of you. It's just Jonathan and you that it looks like recorded that record, and then you had somebody kind of guest on drums, or am I way off base?
Yeah, we so for that EP, it was just me and him. Yeah, we recorded everything, and we hired this dude, Mike Ponomarev, who's in Russia. We hired him to do drums for the EP. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. So talk to me a little bit about the EP because you can start hearing the elements of the more modern sound of what the band is, but to me, and this is a huge kind of praise to you guys, like you remind me of that like late 80s kind of like Merciful Fate kind of vibe. And yeah, but that's the kind of vibe I get. Kind of, Celtic Frost, like, Celtic Frost for people that'll get pissed off at me, but whatever, but that kind of vibe was in there with that like late 80s, early 90s thrash metal. And then you started to put like Melodeath elements in it.
Totally.
Okay. Yeah. So what made the transition from Earthly Wounds, which is more of just a kind of really kick-ass kind of melodic heavy metal record to go into Sea Crypts, where I'm gonna say now, dude, I know it's your band, but it's just what I hear. I hear prog metal, I hear death metal, I hear thrash, and then I hear a ton of kind of Black Death. And if I can kind of put three bands together that kind of, when I listen to the new record, come to mind instantly, and then we can kind of talk about this whole thing that I just kind of threw at you.
Sure.
So Opeth, Dissection, and Dark Tranquillity. These are the three bands that I hear the most in the new record. And Opeth, I'm telling you 100% vocally. Like, he's got that Michael kind of vibe going.
Oh, yeah.
Dissection, for the goddamn guitars. I don't know how you got that kick-ass Black Death sound that I've never heard anyone do good besides Dissection in my life. All right. And then just the Melodeath side, like, I swear to God, you sound so much like early Dark Tranquillity. It makes me get like chills. But talk a little bit about the difference of moving from Earthly to the Sea Crypts and how that all came about.
God, so I don't know. I mean, I guess to start when we finished writing this Anti-Kithra stuff, because that's when we went into the Earthly Wound stuff. It really portrays a lot of like who we're kind of listening to at the time, you know, and I'm always kind of so all over the place. Like, I think when we started writing this stuff for Earthly Wounds, I think I was listening to a lot of Merciful Fate, because I'm always listening to a lot of Merciful Fate. I mean, pretty much like every other riff on both of those albums are like a rip off of a Merciful Fate album. So, you know, but I was I think I was listening to like a lot of Exhumed at the time. Like they released what was that album? The concept album they did, Death. Shit, I can't remember. God damn it! Right. It's what album is it called? Here, let me look it up really quick.
You can look it up. That's fine.
Death Revenge. Okay. And they had just released that. I was listening to that a lot. I think we were listening to a lot of like Bloodbath at the time.
Oh wow.
And honestly, like the Thrash is kind of like that was my gateway drug into heavy metal as a kid. So Thrash has always been in my existence and in my writing. It's always been the thing that I've kind of, you know, moved towards whenever I'm writing. It's probably my favorite genre, if I'm being honest, you know. So that's definitely kind of how that Earthly Wound sound came about. I think I was just kind of more in a really straightforward mode or something. I don't know. It's funny too, because actually, like, Dear Esther, that song was written. It wasn't finished, but I had started writing it. This was even way before me and John were we even knew each other. But I started writing that song like years ago, and it was always like I never finished it, but it was always like those riffs where I was like, those riffs are so fucking cool. I need to use those at some point. So I always have just kind of had it on the back burner for me. And when me and John started working together, we really started to vibe off of each other and push each other. And I was kind of like, okay, I think this is the time to use that song. And he really helped me push that song forward. And, you know, he got Frederick from October Tide to do the little solo on that and stuff like that. So, you know, it kind of worked out perfectly for that. It was, yeah, just perfect timing, I guess, you know?
Cool. So moving into the newer record, you have a full-time drummer now, Wyatt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So I want to talk about that because I think the magic on this new record has to do a lot with the drumming. And all right, I am a huge Bolt Thrower fan, okay? And there is a mid-tempo death metal drum beat that Wyatt does constantly throughout this whole record. That is I've been a musician for 30 years. I've put out a dozen plus records myself, from doom metal to industrial. Every drummer I've ever tried to find, I want him to play that kind of beat. And that is the hardest beat to do, because playing that mid-tempo death metal beat is like it's so hard to make it stay and last. So his stamina is just phenomenal on this record. I've read a couple reviews that have really pissed me off where they don't like certain parts of the drumming. And that's like,
there was one review I read where he kind of like was like knocking on Wyatt, and we were like, okay.
I don't get it. So anyway, I want to talk about, I think your interplay, especially with the bass and the drums, is really kind of special on this record. So I kind of wanted to ask, being that you do both, when you write this music, is it more rhythmic that starts with, or is it more those kind of thrashy, kind of, merciful fade-ish moments that you're doing?
Oh, that's I never really thought about that. Honestly, I don't know.
Okay.
To be honest, I kind of, when I write, it's kind of just like, sometimes I'll have like one riff that I'll just kind of be like, this is cool, and nothing will happen to it, and then one day it will just be like, okay, I got it, and it will turn into something. And then other times I'll just sit down and just start writing, and shit just flows out. I'm kind of spontaneous like that, I guess. I don't know.
Cool. That's fair. So I guess the next place I'll kind of go is, do you write it more for the melody side or more for the brutality side when you start an initial song?
I think it kind of just depends on the vibe I'm going for. I mean, I think it's kind of obvious, I'm definitely a bit more of a melody guy, I definitely, I'm super influenced by a lot of the Melodeath bands, Dark Tranquillity and Somnium, and even like, stuff like At the Gates, which, you don't think of it as being, like melodic, but technically it really is. And I've always tried to kind of like pepper in brutality where I think it would be really cool and everything. And sometimes I'm just like, let's just get fucking brutal,
Gotcha.
Let's start it off balls to the wall. But I think I've been kind of trying to like definitely balance them out a bit more even. I felt like that was one of my goals with Secrets, was I kind of wanted to make it a little heavier almost, I think. And I don't know if I accomplished that, but I don't know.
It's a much thicker record. I can tell you that for sure. It may not be heavier, but it's a much fuller experience. So cool. And that's funny that you say you don't think about melody at the Gates, because the whole reason Slaughter of the Soul is as good as it is because it's got those dueling guitars going all the time.
It's like, and it's funny because it's like all their riffs are extremely melodious and just like very, like, they're very pretty, but they're just so in your face and just like just blasting in your ears that you're kind of like, whoa.
Yeah, no, it's just funny the way you said it, because I think of them the same exact way. They may be the poppiest brutal death metal band I've ever heard in my life. So it's just great the way you said it.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to talk about your live shows, because you just played Psycho Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. First of all, how was that? Was there actually good crowds, good responses? Because I heard very mixed results about that event. So
for us, it ended up being way better than I was expecting it to be, honestly, because we got thrown on a super early spot. We had to play 11 a.m. opening doors, which we were originally supposed to play 12, but because of all the all the bands dropping and all the bands coming on, we kind of got pushed down, and it is what it is. But and we started playing when they were opening doors, so like our first couple notes we were playing to essentially our girlfriends in an empty theater, and we were like, okay, here we go. And then the first headbang we did and looked up, there was like actually a pretty good amount of people, and we were like, oh shit. And nice. We had a great time. We got a really good response from people, so it was definitely a really fun killer show to come back to after not playing a show since I think our last show was like, honestly, I think it was August of 2019.
Yeah,
I think so.
I totally get it. So live, do you have a bass player, or do you just play as a 3-piece?
We have a bass player now.
Okay.
Who is pretty sure he will be on our whatever we plan to do next as a release. And we had a fill-in guitarist doing second guitar work for us right now. We're still kind of on the hunt for a permanent second guitarist right now. And we may try for further live shows. We may just keep it a 4-piece up until we can get someone that we're like super stoked with, and someone who can fill our spot permanently. It's weird because I recorded bass on this, and I definitely didn't want to. I would not consider myself a bass player. I get the job done, and people liked it. There was a lot of compliments on the bass, which I'm like super. I'm very grateful for and stoked. But like our bass player now, I'm like at one point, because he joined the band like pretty much right when we sent the album off to mastering, and we were kind of like, should we have him re-record bass lines? And it was just like, no, if we do that, the shit's never gonna come out. We're gonna find every reason to delay it. So just do it. We'll get him on the next thing. So
no, that's cool. So I was gonna compliment your bass playing. So that's funny that you feel like you're not that you're just a competent bass player, because there are some really cool kind of proggy melodious bass lines that go on this record that I feel like miss the mark a lot of times on death metal bands. Like sometimes it's just that low rumble that they want, and it loses. This actually, you can hear the guitar and the bass and the two different things that are going on, which, dude, trust me, if you have a better bass player now, I can't wait to hear that stuff. So
he's nuts. He's insane. So I think if that was a high note, I think our next album will be even more, next EP or whatever we do, because he shreds, he riffs super hard.
Cool.
So,
cool.
And I mean, like going back to like the thrash influence, like one of my favorite albums is like not one of my favorite, but a couple of my favorite albums are like a lot of the shit Testament did, and I always thought that Testament had a really just really cool bass tones. The bass was always kind of more up front in the mix. Like if you listen to Practice What You Preach, like that first little line where he has froggy ass bass tone, that shit always gives me chills, and that's what I've always wanted,
The first 3 Testament records have some of the craziest bass lines, like even the New Order. Like you listen to some of the stuff on the New Order, and like Greg is just playing some of the craziest bass lines, but he's got to, because I mean, he's got Skolnick and Eric on other sides of him, and people like, that's the other thing. And I know we're going to go down a rabbit hole because we're talking about thrash now. But like Eric is like one of the greatest guitar players that people have zero respect for. Like they don't realize how talented that goddamn dude is. And everybody thinks it's Skolnick or whoever else played leads at that time. And Eric wrote like 90% of those killer goddamn riffs.
Yeah, Eric is a monster. That dude rips.
Yeah. So no, cool. And I feel the same way about Testament. all the way up to Souls of Black, where I think It's Time to Loses Its Way, and then Low is where they get better again. And in the last couple of records, I feel like they kind of found their place in the world again. So like, yeah, very, very cool. So I want to talk about the vocals a bit. I know you're not the vocalist. I know he's not here, but you're gonna have to be his advocate for me because I need to talk about a few things. So there is a very strong black kind of proggy death metal vibe to the vocals, and I'm gonna tell you, like, the Opeth thing is very, it's very visual to me, especially early Opeth, like the first 2 or 3 records. His vocals remind me a lot of that, mixed with, and I'm gonna be honest, the Dissection thing again. Like he's got that kind of vibe. When you were making when you were making this record, the new one, Sea Crypts specifically, did he purposely go for more of a kind of blackened death vocal style?
I think, like John usually he just goes into it. We don't do a lot of we don't really sit down a lot too much and be like, all right, this is what the vocals. He usually, honestly, we're like, all right, let's hit record. He just grabs the mic and we're like, was that cool? Yeah, that was cool. Or, do a low or high. But I think with this album, we actually were kind of like, because he definitely does a lot more highs.
Yeah.
And kind of like the screechy stuff on this than he did in the first EP. And I'm pretty sure at one point we were like, kind of use that as more your lead instrument on this one, and we'll pepper in the kind of lowers and the gutturals and the weird nasty sounds a little bit more. But I think we were like, kind of use that as your main source for this album. So
nice, cool. Yeah, you can hear it. That's why I was asking for sure. So before I start talking about the backside of the record and stuff, there's 3 songs on the new record that I kind of want to just get your feedback on, because they're like the ones that made me want to do this interview. So all right. So the first one is Dawnless. Okay. And you freaked the shit out of me because you did a Viking metal riff on that song, like, that I was not ready for. I am a huge Thurfing, Amon Amarth, like Mythotean kind of guy, and you literally threw the most killer Swedish Viking like guitar melodious lines in there, and it's early on in the record, so like people are gonna all I could think of was like, oh Jesus, now they're gonna think they're a Viking metal band and not what they really are. But what made you kind of so early in the record throw such an interesting idea on the album?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, man, like when one, I'm a huge like folk metal, Viking metal. I love a lot of that, just like kind of neo folk music too. And I don't know. I've always been a really big fan of those like very melodic lines. Like even on like Watchers, it has the straight up like pirate anthem chorus. And I don't know. I've just always been a really big fan of doing that stuff. I mean, I have like a little, like I have plans for one day to kind of release like a little more like folk Viking metal project. I have like stuff written, but that's, I've just always been a really big fan. I've always just been a big fan of those super like melodious kind of epic chanty choruses, and I don't know, that's just kind of what that song turned into, So
no, I loved it. That's why I was shocked to hear it, especially from hearing the EP and going into that.
Right.
So that was cool. So the next one's Spineless Throne. And I kind of want to ask, you must like old school punk, because there is this bass line that's going on, and I think you just did it because it fit really well with the guitar, that is the snottiest UK like 80s punk rock riff that's like goes on mixed, and then the guitars are super thrashy. And the thing that I've always noticed is punk and thrash work really well, henceforth crossover music. Like let's like you know, like, but you kind of did that and then threw that very Melodeath overtone on it, which shouldn't have worked, but did work very well. So can you kind of talk about that song and like where all those strange elements came from to make this song?
Well, so first with the punk, I'm actually not like the biggest punk guy. I like punk, and I've been kind of slowly trying to dabble a little bit more into it. Kind of more of just like, I haven't gone like super deep into like, you know, the real deep cuts of punk, but I'm kind of dabbling a bit more in like, you know, like the Misfits and Dead Kennedys and Dead Boys and yeah. But I've never been super into punk, never hated it, never disliked it. Just for whatever reason, I never really dived into it. I think that the punk elements in that song probably just like strive over from my love of like thrash and speed metal, you know, which makes sense. And I don't know, that song, I guess I just for that song I wanted to write kind of a just that, I think that song is the most 80s heavy metal song on the album, and one of my goals when it comes to writing EPs or albums is there always needs to be at least one song on the release that is a straight up like 80s headbanger, fist pumper, you know.
That's
and
awesome.
I try to throw in I try to throw in kind of like all elements of 80s metal. Like I try to throw in thrash, and I try to throw in, you know, old school heavy metal, and like even like hair metal. Like I'm super into all those, the hair metal bands and the hair metal guitars. So it's like, you know, that chorus on that song is like a total fucking hair metal banger. So yeah,
you didn't let me get to it yet, but that was the next thing I was going to talk about, because like I'm 49 years old, so I started playing music as hair metal. Like that was what I did, my friend. And I was going to say, dude, there is such a Dokken kind of vibe going on, right? Like going on right there, that I was just going to say, like, you have to be into like 80s like hard rock. Like it is just brutal.
I'm glad you mentioned Dokken, because yeah, the George is
The
like,
Lynch thing was just there, man. Like I could hear it. Like I could hear it. And then I want to talk a little bit more about that record, because there's another band and another guitarist in particular. I swear to God, you emulated him for about a minute and it gave me chills again. And it's Nevermore, and it's Jeff. All right. So like you reminded me of the second Nevermore record guitar tone so much in the middle of that song.
is that, what album is that? Dreaming Neon
Ecstasy?
Black?
No, Ecstasy.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, Dreaming Neon Black is their third. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but no,
Right.
they were way more thrashy early on, and I think that's like where you kind of get like, it's like early Loomis, kind of like when he's starting to find his way and he's becoming the goddamn amazing guitar player that he became for Nevermore. So like, but you just had that tone. Now, are like Sanctuary or Nevermore or bands like that? Are you fans of that?
I love Sanctuary. I love Nevermore. I'll be honest, I'm not like the hugest fan of both of those bands. Like there's definitely albums and like songs I love from them. And like there's a few albums of Nevermore I honestly haven't even like really like listened to, or like I've only heard a couple songs. But I mean, that's a huge compliment, because Loomis is, you know, Loomis is fucking Loomis. He is insane. He shreds.
Yeah. I feel the same way. I feel like he leveled up Arch Enemy too. Like Arch Enemy was in this kind of weird place, and then he came into it, and they're a whole better band now. So
have you, I haven't listened to it yet, but have you spun the new Alcatraz song?
I have.
I've heard it's super sick.
Oh, Dude, you will lose your mind. I'm just gonna let you know, you will lose your mind. Cool, very cool. So the last song I want to talk about, and this is my favorite track, and I probably jump on a bandwagon. I don't give two flying shits about it. But it's the Calling of This Realm, and you wrote, and this is no bullshit in my eyes, you wrote one of the most beautiful prog death record songs I've ever heard in my life. And I don't know if it's samples, I don't know what it is, but the piano synth layers on there are the most fucking brilliant things that I've heard on a song of this variety. Like, a lot of bands get scared to do that, especially on a song like this. And dude, I don't know who did it, but you went balls out and just said, screw this. This is going to be this song. This is how it's going to be. And if you don't like it, fuck you. This is our record. You can totally hear it. Can you talk a little bit about that one? Because
Yeah.
the three things I want to talk about on that one is there's this amazing Eastern element on it. There's this amazing prog element on it. And those fucking pianos, man, just talk about it for me.
So the first thing I have to say about that song is I'm really pissed that everyone seems to really like that song, and it's because I do not want to play it live because it's hard as shit. So I'm just like, God, I was hoping no one would like that song. But yeah, so far, like, people seem to really, really dig that track, which is really cool. I'm super stoked because that was like, so with some of my older projects I've done, I've always been very synth heavy. VaelMyst is probably one of the first projects where, like, I've pretty much strictly kept it the kind of old formula, like guitar, bass, and drums. So, like, the keys on that song, it's just programmed. I'm using like some dinky little piano patch. It just sounds so pretty because I just fucking milked it in reverb.
Gotcha.
Made it kind of pretty and distant and nice and epic sounding. So, honestly, nothing really that special. That's just like a little melody line I think I've had tucked away forever, and it just kind of seemed like a really cool spot to do it, and I think that song I was listening to a lot of At the Gates and a lot of Flesh God at that point.
You can hear the Flesh God Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So, dude, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So no, thanks. So the next thing I kind of want to talk about is why stay DIY? Like, why do this all yourself? Like, are you trying to look for like a bigger label, a big PR machine to try and help you out? Because this record has such potential, and I feel like I do it myself. Sometimes I just put out a record for the sake of it because it's a pain in the ass to try and find a label to do it. But is this something that you've always wanted to just do it yourself, not worry about other minds, other ideas, worry about the bottom line? So
no, we definitely want a label. We definitely would. I mean, I would love to be DIY as long as possible, but realistically, we don't have the funds to do that ourselves. It's fucking expensive, like even just to press vinyl. And I really want to get this album pressed on vinyl, but it's fucking expensive, So we definitely are searching for a label and definitely would love to work with one. It just hasn't happened yet. And at the moment, I feel like the more we can do on our own, and the more shows we can book on our own, the more releases we can do on our own, it's just going to look better to anyone that does eventually want to work with us, as opposed to kind of just sitting around and waiting, and hopefully maybe someone will nag us. We just wanted to get it out. We were like, you know what, fuck it, let's let's just do it. The more people we can get into us, the better it will look when someone eventually does want to approach us and work with us.
Nice.
You know, so, but we definitely are hunting for that for sure. So
the press has been really strong so far, so that's a good sign, man. Like I will say,
we used a PR company to help us out with that, which was a really great investment. It was really helpful.
Oh.
So
I know Scott really well, so So like I said, when he sends me things and he sends me little notes, like I've known him for like 15 years, so he'll send me little notes. He'll be like, "This is one you need to listen to." Like he'll send me something like that, and yours was one of those. Hey Clint, this is one you need to listen to. I said, okay, because he knows what I like. I mean, I've known the dude long enough that he'll send me stuff and he'll literally say, like, check it out, but I'm sure you're never gonna even talk about this record. Like, you know, he just knows. But yeah, no, Clawhammer's they're a good bunch, man. So I'm very happy for you to get that as well too. Next thing I want to talk about is probably very personal to you, but both albums, the artwork was done by Travis. So Travis Smith. I mean, if people don't know who he is, they live in a fucking hole. So I'm not gonna try so this is not a diss. This is more a question. Like, why would you want to use an artist that 50 fucking million bands have already used?
You know, John is one of those people who's just he's like a little social butterfly where he'll always be like, oh yeah, I'm homies with this guy, and I'm like, yeah, okay, dude, whatever. And then he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm getting him on a record, and I'm like, oh, okay. And me, like, I'm much more of a homebody and kind of secluded and shy and stuff. And so John he's just been kind of homies of Travis for like a while now, and they just talk back and forth, and you know, and originally, it's kind of funny. Originally, why we used Travis for Earthly Wounds was we didn't commission that piece, the Earthly Wounds art. That was a piece that he like already had done, and we originally were gonna have this one dude do it, and he just took so long. We were like, I don't know if he's ever gonna do it. And we were kind of like, let's just hit up Travis and get a piece. And it kind of just worked out that like we really felt that like Travis's art kind of really reflected the music. Because one of the ways that I've kind of always described our music is like a dark European fairy tale. Like, and Travis's art really has always, a lot of it almost looks like a pop-up book.
Yeah.
You know, it has that kind of image, and I've always thought that was really cool. Like there's that one video for, what was that one Steve Wilson, Michael Ackerfeld project, Storm Corrosion?
Yes.
Yeah, they had that one music video that was kind of like pop-up book, and that always kind of reminded me of it. So we were talking with Travis and looking through some of the pieces he had, and the Earthly Wounds kind of really stuck out, and like it just kind of really, it sat really well for us, and it just seemed really right. And so we went with that, and we felt it worked out really well. And we wanted to commission him for our actual album. We wanted him to do something, and Travis is so talented and so cool. We literally didn't tell him what to do. You know, we didn't have an idea of what we want. We were just like, yo, like, here's the album, here's the lyrics, like, do your thing, you know? And like, awesome. We like literally didn't really know what he was doing till it was like basically done. Like, because that's how Travis likes to work. He doesn't really like to like show like the like half done project to you. He'll be like, I'm gonna basically finish it. If you don't like it, we'll do something else. but he sent it to us, and we were like, holy shit, this looks like a horrible fever dream. Like,
Yeah.
We were like, this is perfect. This is amazing. So I don't know. Travis just has really, I feel like he just really fits the music for us. You know, I mean, we thought about like other guys too, like Adam Burke or some of the other dudes we were thinking of. I can't remember all the names,
and that's fine. No,
yeah.
that's great. No, you explained it really well. So I was gonna kind of go into it deeper because so I've been friends with a band called November's Doom for a very, very long time.
Oh yeah. Sure.
All right. So like Paul and Larry and I, we were all on the same record label called Dark Symphonies. So like I've like Larry kind of like we sat down one night. It was like 2003 or so, and just like we're bullshitting after a show, and like he gave me the same scenario. So that's what I was going to ask. Like Travis seems like the coolest dude in the world because he's done like 4 or 5 of their album covers too.
Yeah.
And he said the same exact thing you just said. Like he's very private, and you just give him like, here's the music, here's the lyrics, here's the idea we have, and then just let me do it. And it was funny because he said they got the first transition of Welcome to the Fade, which he did for them. And they said they were just like looked at it, and I guess they called him, were like, this is just not right. This is just not what we're looking for. He went like in a totally different direction. And he goes, no, I thought that was going to happen. I'm going to send you the other one I did already. And then they sent the second one, and they were like, "That's exactly what we were looking for." And I guess like when Larry said to me, he said like, "Damn it, I knew I should have sent the other one." Like that's so what he like that like. So like yeah, that's very cool, and I think he's a great artist. And yes, with this record, that artwork is so disturbingly weird. It fits so well with what the music that you've made. So very cool. So this is probably going to be a really hard question. You're going to be like, damn it, why did you ask me this? But I always do this. All right. So let's say you're in a record store. Yeah, I'm old. I love record stores. I love going to do stuff like that. Yeah, cool. And some kid walks up, and he's just like, he's got the VaelMyst record in his hand. And he goes to you, he goes, hey, have you heard this? What's this band all about? How would you explain your band to him that he's never heard before?
Okay. So I think how I'd explain this band is Nosferatu rolls up on a skateboard wearing a Dawson hat with like a goblet of blood and like a At the Gates album in his arm, and it's like, hey, you should check this album out.
If that goddamn kid doesn't buy it after that, man, I don't think it's ever gonna get sold. That's awesome. Very cool. So I guess I just got a couple more questions, and then I'll let you go. So I appreciate it very much. So the album has kind of an upbeat kind of feel, but a dark theme.
Yeah.
So was that done on purpose, that you tried to uplift some of the music because of the darker tone, or was that just kind of the way the music was already written?
I think it's just kind of the way the music was written. I mean, as I said, I'm such a fan of like 80s metal. I mean, we're all such fans in this band of like 80s metal and hair metal and stuff, and early thrash and stuff. So we've always just been, we've always just been fans of, headbanging, throw your horns up riffs and moshing and stuff. That I think we've always just kind of tried to keep the music a little more upbeat and rocking. And like the lyrics, John's so funny. Like he's like the goofiest, like good time kind of stonery, just like chill dude ever. But like walked inside of him, there's this like dark, like 18th century poet that just yearns out through his tongue or something like that. So we just kind of roll with it, So
Cool. No, that's awesome. And that's kind of the vibe I felt was like, it's very deep lyrics, like personal lyrics. So why not try and give it more of an epic kind of upbeat feel, because it'll pull the listener in more to kind of read and kind of
Right.
follow along. So that's very
Yeah.
cool. Nice. So I have to ask, you're in LA, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that doesn't seem the most conducive scene for the kind of music that you make. All right. And I'm going to be honest, because I have I have a dear friend. He's actually the head of Red Bull Records, and I went to high school with him. I was in my first band with him. So like, he lives right outside of Santa Monica too. And I call it the land of plastic folks for a reason, because of what it
Mm-hmm.
is.
Yeah.
Your music has such passion, soul, and originality. How does it how does something like that come out of there, where like every band I've ever heard is a paint by numbers bullshit band there? And I'm not trying to be rude to you,
No,
I'm being
I
rude
get
to
it.
those around you. Like, I mean, literally every band I've met out of LA want to be the next this, want to be the next that. You guys
Right.
are not that in any way, shape, or form. Like, you can totally hear the love of all the old music, of new music, like, and then just your own original ideas. How is LA kind of like the reason why you write this like this way, or is it just that you just play outside of that area because there's not really much to be able to fit what you do?
Um, no, I honestly, I think the reason we sound the reason we do is, we're all just big fans of music, and I think we really wear who inspires us on our sleeves when we write, and we're but at the same time we're not really, we're just trying to write we're just trying to write music that we would enjoy, like when we write, I think we're like, what's something that we would want to buy and like pick up on the shelf. And I mean, that may not mean everyone else is gonna enjoy it, but I think for people that are kind of like us, who are just, we just love metal, we just love heavy metal, and all that has kind of come from it. We just try to write what we would like and what we'd enjoy. And I mean, LA is LA. But yeah, I don't know. And we have such a broad influence. I mean,
Yeah.
as you said earlier, like the whole like kind of folk thing. Like I'm super into like bands like Garmarna, who are like like straight, just like neo
Yeah.
folk and everything like that. So
Very cool. No, great answer. Thank you, man. Uh, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the last few minutes of this interview to kind of talk about what the band has going on, any future endeavors, if there's any new music outside this new record that you're doing. Kind of talk about the band, and let me know what the next 6 months for VaelMyst has.
hopefully we will have some more live stuff planned uh, for this year. Um, iffy on shows happening, that I'm just not 100% sure on that. We've got a couple little tricks up our sleeve too that we'll probably be putting out towards the end of the year, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's really it. I mean, just go listen to the new album if you haven't.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. So the last question I'm going to ask you, and I do this with a lot of bands. I've stopped a little bit, but I kind of want to start doing it again. And you're going to be my new introduction back into asking this question. So, is there anything or anyone that, if you could give the Sea Crypts record to either remix, produce, help with arrangements, that you would love to be able to, let's say, if a record label did say, hey, we're going to goddamn re-release this because we love you, but we want to, we want to give you the time to be able and the budget to be able to do something special to make it sound a little bit different than what you did. Is there anybody in particular you'd like to work with?
Oh, yeah. It would either be Peter from Hypocrisy or
Nice.
Or Andy Sneap. Either one of those two.
Oh my God! If you even get to talk to Andy Sneap, I think that would be the coolest. That would be the coolest goddamn moment ever. Like that man is an encyclopedia of music. So.
Yeah, and like for I like personally, Peter is probably my favorite producer. I think his productions are like the amount of reverb he uses on stuff, but still somehow makes things super clear and just heavy and in your face. Like I can't fathom how he does that. Like it's just crazy. Like in my opinion, Fall the Reaper from Bodom is probably one of the best sounding albums ever made. That's like my go-to tier of albums. And then Andy, I just want to work with Andy because I just want to ask him about Sabat and have him get mad at me because I won't shut up about Sabat.
Nice. That's awesome. That was my first thought was like, what period Sneap do you want to talk to him about? And you just answered it so much. Yeah, I would just, I probably have 1,000 questions about fucking Martin about him. Forget about him. Like, yeah, gee, dude, you are so on the same mental level as I am right now with that.
I one night tried to drunkenly Facebook message Martin over Facebook. I was like, "You are so cool." I just like that. He never saw it, hopefully, but
oh, that's awesome. Very cool, very cool. No, I love Hypocrisy, and I was just gonna say with you that he definitively made what nuclear blast death metal is today. Like, his productions are like. I think I'm the only person on this earth that loves Pain too. Like I think Pain is like one of the most like amazingly pompous, epic, over the top bullshit things, but he did that on purpose. Like that's what he wanted that to be. And people just didn't understand it. So that's why they get mad at it. But he did that because he wanted to have his own giant pop rock band. Like that's what he wanted. But I think some of the stuff he did with Therion too is just absolutely mind-blowing too. So no, very cool. Hey, Ronny, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been an absolute blast to be able to do. So
thank you.
Yeah, no, man. Like I said, your new album, what is it? Secrets of the Egogasm is out now. I will put links to the Bandcamp and your social media on this as well too. I, from the bottom of my heart, will say if people don't buy this, listen to it, stream it, or whatever, they're fucking morons. All right, because it's one of the best. I guess I'll say experimental Melodeath records that I've heard in a while, because you mix thrash, speed metal, 80s metal, prog, and death metal into something that a lot of bands don't do, and I really do appreciate it.
It's kind of funny. I think we just labeled it Melodeath because I think that was like the easiest thing to label it as. Like, I think we kind of went into that knowing that everyone was going to be like, "This isn't Melodeath," or they'd be like, "This is Melodeath, but it's so much more." So
yeah, cool. So no, thank you very much. If you ever do come to Phoenix, let me know. I will come hang out. We'll have a beer and we'll talk about old 80s music and have a good time. Cool, man. Again, Clint from the Doorway too, hanging out with Ronny from VaelMyst. It's been an absolute pleasure. You have a great weekend, man.
Thanks, man.